Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. We're here today on our Total Wellness Tuesday episode, where we are talking about even conventional medicine, right? Even modern day medicine, which is all about pharmaceuticals and that nutrition doesn't work, exercise doesn't work, nutritional supplements doesn't work. Even they are conceding to the fact now there is a specific nutritional supplement that is helping people with overall mortality, heart-based issues, immune-based issues, and even the COVID-based virus right now. So I want to share that with you because there's a couple things that I'm trying to do with these particular shows. It's to share the information that conventional medicine is always decades behind what we know in natural health. And if we look at Ayurveda, well, we're really talking about thousands of years behind, and we're simply rediscovering what we've always known all along about good quality whole food nutrition, and also taking that whole food nutrition as an extract when needed and putting it into an actual vitamin. So it's nice to see that, again, all of these large universities like a Harvard University, and we look at all the different clinics, that they're coming around to the fact that, okay, maybe we were a little bit wrong in these particular areas, and we're going to start to give credit where credit's due. So we know now conventional medicine will prescribe things like calcium, and they used to even prescribe, believe it or not, magnesium. They're going to prescribe, well, they're going to at least talk about vitamin D, although they stopped running it on labs, which is completely insane, even though vitamin D is one of the most important markers that you could possibly run. But there is one more nutritional supplement right now that they actually write, I would say, hundreds of thousands of prescriptions for each year. And that is for omega-3s. But not just any omega-3, and I want to talk a little bit more about that. But before I do, let's talk about why it's being prescribed. So for the most part, the problem with conventional medicine, I just mean kind of like modern day medicine, you go to your primary care physician and they say, okay, you have something like heart disease. Well, believe it or not, what they will do is oftentimes not recommend these things until the person already has heart disease or diabetes or high blood pressure, and they're already on medications, or where it's typically prescribed as a person's already have a heart attack, right? They had a heart attack and now they're being put on a prescription omega-3. And the other issue is that they're always using the cheapest form of omega-3s when it comes to a prescription, because of course it's all about profit, right? So again, I know that pharmaceuticals save lives. There's no doubt about it. Trust me, I get it. I understand. There is a time and place for pharmaceuticals. I completely agree. Life-saving conditions, we want to use those pharmaceuticals. I talked about it on a previous virus-based show where I give you the protocol. It wasn't written by me. I give you the protocol now if you were to ever get this COVID-based virus in the hospital. All of it is now well documented, and really by using these particular protocols, especially with early intervention, I mean, the likelihood of survival is way over 99%. Like, there's not a lot of likelihood that you will die if you use these protocols, which do include pharmaceuticals if you enter the hospital. So anyway, it was something I sent around, of course, to my parents and just try to share it with as many people as possible. But the truth is this: conventional medicine does pharmaceuticals really well. What they don't do well are nutritional supplements. At least, though, they're now open to the idea that we need to start using these nutritional-based interventions with people. And the latest that we've seen is from the COVID-based virus. And I want to share this with you. These are direct stats. I will link up all the research for you. So, of course, if you want to show it to friends and family members and whoever it might be, just keep in mind that convincing friends and family members who already know you of anything that makes them change their mind is very, very difficult, right? Your parents might read something in the Wall Street Journal or hear it on the evening news, and they're more likely to believe that than they are you, even if you've studied this and you're in the health-based field, whatever it might be. And that's just family dynamics. That's how it works, right? So But here's the thing, and we talk a lot about that on Mindset and Motivation Mondays. So you're happy, or you're welcome to tune into those shows. But here's the truth, right? All kidding aside, the COVID-based virus we know is helped by vitamin C, zinc, vitamin D. I've gone through the whole list before. Why don't I do this? I'm going to link up that previous show, okay? So just go to stephencabral.com/1859. If you want to do that right now, I'm not going to mention it throughout the show, but it's stephencabral.com/1859. Obviously, free show notes page, no issues there, right? I'll link back to previous shows. You can learn more about the whole protocol that, again, has been clinically proven now. Okay. So we know these things work, the quercetin, the zinc, the vitamin C, the vitamin D, all those great things. What we hadn't, now it makes sense, but what we hadn't from a clinical research perspective seen is that people with higher omega-3 indexes, and I'll explain what that is, had a lower risk of death from COVID-19. Now, here's the interesting thing as well, is that the people with a higher omega-3 index actually were more protective than even 10 people 10 years younger than them. Like, that's the amazing thing. So like, let's say you were 65 years old, you started to enter the more high risk category. Well, you would be at least looked at biologically, because we're looking at biological based factors, as someone 55 years old or younger. So what is an omega-3 index? Well, here's what you want to look at, because these omega-3s, let's talk specifically about DHA and EPA, since they're the most active in the body. So they actually become part of your cell membranes, right? But they don't just do that. So part of your cell membranes, when I say that, your red blood cells, right? That's how we find the sample of them. So let's talk first about that omega-3 index. So I've been running omega-3 lab testing for a long time, over 10 years. And I've run thousands and thousands of omega-3 labs. It's one of my favorite labs to run because it's the simplest way to teach people. For example, and again, I don't fault anybody for this, but I had someone write in on the Facebook group that's saying, you don't need to use nutritional supplements because God has provided us with the air to breathe, water to drink, and food to eat. And by the way, there's no argument there. I completely agree with that. And we are very fortunate that God, the universe, has provided us with all of these natural resources that are meant to keep us healthy. And the further we move away from those, the sicker we are, right? If you don't get any sun, you're not going to be very healthy. Like, that's the truth. I know people are worried about, sun damage and all these different things, but you have to get a little sun. It is actually vital to the human body. Really, really important. Same with fresh air. And of course, the list goes on. And Ayurvedic medicine has taught us this. But here's the thing. I don't believe that God, the universe, creator, etc., meant or wanted, although allowed for through free will, all of this pollution in the world and the soil degradation and the amount of toxicity and inflammation we have in our body. So I allow, again, this person, whoever wrote that, I say, and again, I'm not a combative person, so I don't go back and forth on social media at all. Like, that's just not who I am. So here's the thing. They could run an omega-3 test and they would clearly see, unless they're eating high omega-3 fish 4+ times a week, they'll clearly see that their omega-3 index is probably less than a 4. The median is right around a 5, okay? So what does that mean? Well, the problem is, if your levels are not above the 5, you have higher levels of inflammation. I'll get to why this affects the virus in just a moment. But also, if we're talking about all-cause mortality, this is another really important statistic right here that I want to share with you. So those people with an omega-3 index greater or equal to 5.7 had a lower rate of death from COVID-19, and an omega-3 index over 8% is associated with the lowest risk of death from heart disease, while an index below 4, which is common in the US and Europe, puts you at the highest risk of heart disease-related mortality. Now, why is this important? Well, what is the greatest group of people affected by this particular virus besides people over the age of 75, right? Where the immune system is just simply not as strong for certain segments of the population, especially in nursing homes. Well, why? Why is this important? Well, the number one factor is heart disease. It was this is clinically written up through the CDC, through Johns Hopkins, many universities. We look at it, heart disease is that number one factor. Oh, what is heart disease? Heart disease along the way is an imbalance of inflammation. There's no doubt about that. Inflammation can cause calcium buildup in the arteries because there's inflammation in the endothelial tissue, which creates minor nicks. And calcium is used as a masonry glue along with cholesterol in order to patch that up. I don't have time to go through all of that today. We'll do that on another show. But there is a reason why that is inflammatory based. What about some of the other comorbidity factors, as we call them? High blood pressure. Well, high blood pressure is clearly an inflammatory-based issue. Again, there are underlying root causes to that: heavy metals, high levels of cortisol, et cetera, excitatory neurotransmitters. And then we also have type 2 diabetes and obesity, higher levels of inflammation. There's just no doubt about it. I did a show on the gut adipose axis. Hopefully you tuned into that. Let me see if I can find that show for you. It was just over the last 2 weeks. That was episode 1846 of how gut-based issues can cause inflammation, which can cause body fat gain. Body fat gain then causes more inflammation, which then circulates throughout the body. We're talking about a systemic-based issue. So when we look at omega-3s, what are they really doing? Well, omega-3s are natural anti-inflammatories. Okay, they're natural anti-inflammatories. We're not talking about disease here. We're not talking about curing disease. We are not talking about treatment protocols. What we're talking about are natural factors within the human body that's meant to regulate inflammation. Omega-3s are one of those. Why? Humans, tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of years ago, would typically be eating somewhere between some people say 1-to-1. I find that hard to believe because they were getting more easily able to be accessed foods. That's the truth, right? So if you look at hunter-gatherers, unless they're eating a lot of fish, probably not a 1-to-1. It's probably going to be more like a 3-to-1, what I've read in the research. But regardless, 3-to-1, 1-to-1, fantastic, right? Here's the thing. So what are they doing? Well, they're eating all things in nature that would have somewhere around a 1-to-1, 2-to-1, 3-to-1 base ratio, whether it be some animal products, fish-based products, nuts and seeds and plant-based foods, those types of things, right? Okay, well, that makes sense, right? They're getting some omega-6s, which our bodies need, by the way. Our cell membranes need those omega-6s to omega-3s. But the typical diet right now, especially in the US, around Europe, Australia, et cetera, is a diet that's closer to 18-to-1. Okay, so when I run your average omega-3 lab test, right, not your average, but when I run your omega-3 lab test and I look at the average omega-3, I'll tell you this. It's typically a 10-to-1 for healthy people. And I wouldn't even say healthy people. I would say people that come in, they're already health conscious. That's a better way to say it. They're already health conscious. They're like that person that wrote on the Facebook page, you only need good food, sun, and fresh air to breathe in order to heal your body. Now, I wish that was the truth, and it was probably the truth 200 years ago with the original naturopaths and natural hygienists, et cetera. But even still, probably not, right? Because in Ayurvedic times, they did panchakarma, they did full detoxes, they did all sorts of different things. But regardless, we'll say that. Now, if this person were to run that lab, they'd probably be an 8 to a 10-to-1. I'm giving the benefit of the doubt to say that they were an 8-to-1 in terms of omega-6s to omega-3s. That will put them somewhere around a 4 to 5, most likely, for an omega-3 index. So there we go. So we're looking at that. We say, oh, yeah, they're like the typical healthy person, right? Typical healthy person would be around an 8 to 10-to-1, or health conscious person. I keep saying healthy, but health conscious because they're still not balanced yet. Now, it only takes about 6 weeks for them to get above an 8%. We shoot actually for a 9% omega-3 index, and then a proper 3-to-1 ratio. And I'm going to share with you exactly what we do. I'm not saying that it's the exact treatment protocol for you. I'm not saying that it's going to cure disease. We can't talk about that on the podcast. FDA obviously won't be very happy. And so we want to make sure the FDA is very happy. So here's what I'm going to share with you is that omega-3 index, what does it even mean? What do these omega-3s mean? Well, they are there to combat the more inflammatory omega-6s. Well, where do the omega-6s come from? Well, all these people right now on these keto diets and low-carb diets and carnivore diets, unless they are eating all 100% grass-fed, grass-finished meat, pastured based, like true pastured based eggs, not eggs fed soybeans and things like that. I shouldn't say eggs fed that, but chickens, roosters fed those particular nutrients. That's not natural. And the fish have to be wild caught as well. But we're talking about people being told to, load up on coconut oil. And again, I'm not against coconut oil. Load up on pork rinds and lots of eggs and all these things. We have to understand is that's not natural. There is nothing about that that's natural. Now, can you force yourself to lose weight on that type of a diet? 100%. There's no doubt about that, right? It's also the same thing. It's like, can you force yourself to have energy in the morning by taking a really cold plunge in the water? Yes, you can, because you're going to drive dopamine levels and epinephrine levels through the roof, right? Is that the best thing to do? Probably not, right? I mean, now you can definitely use cold to your advantage, and same with heat, and I do in my own life. But if you don't wake up with energy, you don't force yourself to have it through these things. You ask yourself, why don't I have the energy in the first place? Because then that leads you to an actual answer of a root cause that you can correct so that it doesn't manifest itself in some other way. And omega-3s are one of the most important things, because a lot of people with this particular virus, they keep talking about cytokine storm, inflammation, cytokine storm, all these different things. And listen, I get it, and it's absolutely true, right? There's no doubt about it. But we have to look at what foods would help with immunomodulation. Greens are a great one. Flavanols are a great one. I talked about flavanols and the 400 milligrams a day. Hopefully you checked that out. That was on episode, let's just see here, 1831. We'll try to link that up for you today as well. So Flavanols are one. Where do you get those from? Well, you get them from brightly colored fruits and vegetables. Those are immune modulators, right? Well, what about omega-3s? Omega-3s are immune modulators. What do they help with? Well, specifically in one, interleukin-6, we look at a very powerful inflammatory cytokine-based process inside the immune system that can get too revved up. Well, what helps with that? EPA and DHA omega-3s. And why are now conventional medicine using it more for things like heart disease, et cetera? Well, they know that if you can reduce inflammation, now you should always find out why you have the inflammation, whether it be gut issues, heavy metals, et cetera. But if you can reduce the inflammation, well, then the arteries aren't so tight. They're not so small. It allows blood to flow through to a much greater degree. So basically, the arteries are supposed to open and then close a little bit. Open, close. Allow blood to pump out and then close back a little bit. But if they don't have that flexibility, well, what can happen? Well, plaque starts to build up in the arteries. All of a sudden, the arteries can't expand. They're missing that elasticity. And then you have a heart attack, right? Or you have some type of myocardial infarction is the technical name for it, some type of cardiac event. That's a problem, right? Well, what do omega-3s do? And again, this is not a treatment protocol. Omega-3s allow for more of that anti-inflammatory based benefits. This is why after 6 weeks to 12 weeks maximum, we see people, and I'm going to give you exactly how much we see in our practice. Doesn't mean that it's specific to you. That's why lab testing is the best. It allows people to get back to their natural state of a 3-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3 framework. And that also enables for a higher omega index, which we want above that 8% as well. We actually shoot for 9% in our practice. So here's my recommendation. Run the lab test first if you can. That's just my recommendation. It's up to you. But if you run the omega-3 lab, you can find that at equi.life, EQI.LIFE, or you can run it with your local functional medicine doctor, naturopathic doctor, or integrative health practitioner, okay, level 2. So that's great, right? Or you can open source it. You can do it right at EquiLife. Now, that will come with your results as well as a plan for you if you do get it through EquiLife. But again, the choice is always yours. Then what do you do? Well, I'm going to tell you exactly what we've seen to work in our practice, because it's not a lot. It's for anyone above a 13, I'll tell you exactly what we do. Anybody above a 13 for their arachidonic acid to EPA. So the most inflammatory omega-6, arachidonic acid, causes all sorts of inflammation and prostaglandin-based issues in the body. Just think of that as inflammatory cytokines. In EPA, super anti-inflammatory, right? You need both DHA and EPA, but I'm going to get to that in a second, why EPA is actually more of an indicator. So if anyone's above a 13-to-1, what do? 1 tablespoon of omega-3 support a day, or 3 soft gels of omega-3 support a day. Typically 1 at breakfast, 1 at lunch, 1 at dinner, mid-meal. That's it, okay? And then what's the maintenance dose? 2. That's it. So we go from 3 grams to 2 grams a day. That's really all we've seen needed to work. However, there's a catch. It has to be a 2-to-1 ratio of EPA to DHA, which is almost the exact opposite of every single omega-3 product out there. And that is why it's so important to go with a functional medicine nutritional support company, because it's all based on lab work. It's not based on hearsay or this may work, this might work. We ran thousands of labs, and I used to use a higher DHA to EPA, typically a 2-to-1 DHA to EPA. That just means the type of omega-3s. And then I realized, oh, well, no, when people come in, they're always lower on EPA than they are DHA. They might be low on both, but typically EPA is half of what DHA is. What do? Created a formula that has twice as much EPA as DHA. And guess what? All of a sudden, EPA rose, DHA rose. People got down to the 3-to-1 within 12 weeks maximum. Omega-3 index went above that 8. And again, I'm not asking anyone to trust me. I'm saying you can lab verify this, and they're not our labs. We open source the labs to you, but you can see, you can run a lab this week, start with your nutritional supplements of whatever you need based on the numbers that I just gave you. If you're below a 13-to-1, you can just do your 2 or your 1 teaspoon a day. And then you can retest 12 weeks later. That's it. Use the same maintenance-based dose that I talked about, and you're going to be there. So now, and why do I say this? Why is this so important to me? Or let me just go back to whole food as well. You can use whole food to get this. It's not that we've used vegan-based omega-3s in our practice. We're trying to formulate one right now. We've been doing it for over a year. We're not going to release something unless there's efficacy behind it. And it just takes so much to be able to get that through LG and other things. Again, it can work and we will recommend it. But for those people that are opposed to it, it needs to be a wild caught. You want wild caught. So we use wild Alaskan or we use wild pollock. And that allows us to use a sustainable fish for that, and it's wild. So if you're eating fish, again, it comes from fish, you want to get 4 servings per week, okay? And you want them to be high omega-3 based fish. Not every fish will do it. High omega-3 fish, and you still want a lab test to make sure they're at the right ratio. I will link up, I can't link up the supplement, but you can find the supplement, which is omega-3 support, comes in a liquid, comes in a soft gel at equi.life, EQUI.LIFE. And we'll link up the podcast if you want to try to do this through whole food nutrition of the high omega-3 fish to eat, okay? Really, really important because, and remember, it has to be wild because wild fish, nutritional supplements, and wild fish actually have more than 50, they have twice the amount of omega-3s, and they don't have the omega-6s that those farm-raised fish have. Super, super important. The last point I want to share with you is this. Why do a show like this at all? The reason is this, that there's going to be another COVID-based virus in the future. Again, I'm not Nostradamus. I don't have any predictions here, but there's always something. And the people that do well are the people that have balanced immune systems. So if you are struggling right now with your health, especially, you want to really work on that now, right? And you want to work on it now. And if you're already healthy, get healthier, right? Optimize the body. Don't wait for your body to become sick, right? Optimize your body, run the lab, look at your levels. If you're already good, then good for you. Then your diet's fantastic and you're getting all the nutrients that you need, right? You could especially run a starter kit with the omega-3. Now you look at all your vitamins, all your minerals, you look at your heavy metals, you look at your omega-3s. I'm telling you right now, lab testing will change your life in terms of what you are doing and in terms of how healthy you can be. And I just can't recommend enough. Conventional medicine is amazing for acute-based care and saving lives. You really want to be working with some type of health-based practitioner in order to look at the other, not half of the equation, the other 99% of the equation, so that hopefully you never have to be at the point where you're using conventional medicine with those life-saving pharmaceuticals. Okay, thank you so much for allowing me to basically rant today and share with you what we already know. Again, as health practitioners, as integrative health practitioners, we know this. Right? We see it every single day inside of our practice. I just want to share some of that frustration as well as just saying we know it works. You can do these things and you can enjoy all the benefits. So if this podcast was helpful, please do feel free to share it with anyone else you believe it could serve. Thank you so much for just tuning into the show. And before you go, I can't wait to share with you a brand new debut over at Equilife. We have just come out with our single serving daily nutritional support packets. This is the same daily nutritional support powder, just made that much easier in single serve packets. This allows you to get all of your vitamins, your minerals, your electrolytes, your 15 grams of hypoallergenic vegan-based protein powder, your daily detox factors, and so much more. It is a true all-in-one functional medicine-based formula, and it is the perfect way to start your day. That's why we have so many people, thousands upon thousands of people inside of our global health community using it as part of their daily foundational protocol every single day. You're getting that pure chocolate flavor or pure vanilla, and it of course is non-GMO. So you can now get that in single serve packets, which means that let's say that you're leaving for the weekend, you're traveling, whatever it might be. These are easy on the go packets. You can put them in your gym bag. You can use them on the detox while at work, whatever works for you. So you can get now over at equa.life a 14 serving box. That is the same amount of servings in one of your daily nutritional support jars, same exact amount of servings. And you can get that right now at 10% off during the debut. Head on over to equi.life for 10% off the new single serving daily nutritional support shake packets. Take care, everyone.